and I'm just going to begin as we just kind of trickle in and, grab a seat today. I'm just going to begin and just read a little bit about her life as we begin today. Dolores met Jesus face to face on Monday, October 5th, 2020, in Columbus, Ohio, at the age of 87 years old. She was born June 5th, 1933 in Cincinnati, the Queen City, to the late Alvin Joseph and Eleanor Schultz-Lucking. Above all, Dolores is celebrated as a loving Christian mother and grandmother whose affection was generously displayed throughout the entire extended family. She hosted many family reunions, cherishing their times together. Dolores was not only generous with her family, she was also gifted with a huge compassionate heart, feeling especially called to serve those with developmental disabilities. Further, Dolores was the adopted mom of all of her kids' friends, welcoming them at every opportunity into the home. Dolores loved creating her landscape and abstract oil paintings, doing pottery, writing poetry, attending Christian concerts, and tending to her herbs. She'll be deeply missed, of course, by her surviving children, Beth, Ruth Heller Bowles of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Steve Bowles of Waldorf, Maryland, Sue Bowles of Pataskala, Chris and Annette Bowles of Middletown, Scott Bowles of Pataskala, and their father, Tom Bowles, grandchildren, Elise Bowles, Amanda and Kevin Sloniker, and Samantha Bowles, great-granddaughter, Ashlyn Sloniker, sisters Adeline and Lynn Partouche, and Audrey and Bill Worley, numerous beloved nieces and nephews and friends. In addition to her parents, Dolores is preceded in death by her son, Rusty Bowles, and sisters Maria, Bill Kleiman, and Dot Lucking, and Eleanor and Joe Wintering. Wow, what a family, huh? It's a lot of loving and wonderful people, and hopefully I didn't mess up their names too much. I tried to do her justice. I'm just going to share a few words before we transition to some other things, and then Pastor Scott will come up a little bit later, and he's going to do the message today. But we had an incredible privilege of having Dolores be part of our church for several years, and I was thinking back, just kind of thinking over a few things, and I didn't have the privilege of knowing her in her early years, so I didn't know her maybe nearly as well as maybe some of the folks at Trinity would have known her, or other places knew her earlier on in life. But I can speak to the season of life that we got to know her in, and gosh, it was really, really neat. And I was thinking, I had the privilege of just serving her as her pastor for, I think, about 4 years. I think that was my guesstimate. Is that about right, Scott? Yeah, that's what I thought, about 4 years. And, I watched the people of Real Church fall in love with Dolores over time, week after week, as we saw her come. And then I watched her fall in love with the church. And that was what was so neat. People loved seeing her come and roll into church. And, I really had no idea at all what kind of person she was earlier on in life, and what kind of mother she was. I don't know her with those kind of details, but I thought and processed as I was putting some thoughts together, for the funeral today, or the memorial service today, and I thought, I've witnessed an overwhelming sense of love and support by all of her family. The way that you all, as children, care for her, and I've watched you, how much you cherish her every moment, and you can't wait to get there, and you can't wait to love on her and take care of her. And I thought to myself, my goodness, that tells me all I need to know about who Dolores was throughout her life. That's all I need to know. Because Dolores was loved deeply because Dolores loved deeply. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I wanted to say about that today. I think that's huge. And if I could, I just want to share a quick story, just an interaction that we had at church, something that really stuck with me. Very interesting. Every Sunday, there would be a driver that would bring her to church because, she was in a motorized wheelchair, and they'd bring her in, and they'd back up in the front, and they'd, drop the side down, and she'd come rolling into the church, and people would always open the doors up, and everybody, wave at her and smile, and we loved having her at church, and she loved worshiping. Gosh, she loved worship and loved music, and she'd come in every week, and there was a driver for, maybe a year or two, this particular driver, I don't remember his name, Jimmy, there it is. And he'd come in every week, and he'd walk her in, and you walk behind her, make sure she got in okay, and get her into the sanctuary, and then he'd go sit in the lobby. And we have refreshments and things out there, so he'd get a coffee or something, and he'd sit out there in that lobby the whole church service, wait till it was over. And then he'd get her back in the van, take her back home. And I started working on Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy, you're coming all the way to the sanctuary doors, you know what I mean? And what about coming in and sitting next to her, you know what I mean? And just joining the church service. And Jimmy, I don't know. And one day, I'll never forget, Jimmy comes in and he sits down right next to her. And he says, I think I'll try it out, And then pretty soon, every week, he's sitting right next to her in the sanctuary. And he would always say, Dolores is my sweetie. I just love Dolores. He just cared for her, cherished her so much. But then pretty soon, week after week, he'd come up, Pastor, that was a really good message. I like last week's better, but that was a really good message this week, He started giving me feedback on the messages and the sermons, And I thought to myself, even in the last season of her life, she was getting people in church. And that's what hit me the most. And so I just wanted to share that with you. If it's okay now, we're just going to make a little transition up, and we're going to sing a couple worship songs together just to celebrate and honor her. So Molly, if you'd join me.